Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. JaX26 here, and this is my better looking other half, Divinity.
Hi.
So we recently watched JoCat's crap guides on tanks, healer, and DPS, and I thought they were absolutely hilarious and quite informative too, I would say. Extremely gifted content creator and really well done videos. A couple of people in the comments said that we should check out one of his other videos, something about how it took me 300 hours to like Final Fantasy, something like that. So I was sent the link to the video, and we're gonna check it out today and see what we think.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
All right, guys, you ready? Let's get ready to start it.
So I want to talk about Final Fantasy XIV. Yeah, I'm obsessed with this game now. I've been sucked into an MMO.
I love
been
his
my
little
go-to
animations.
Primary
They're
comfort
very
game
cute.
for over a year now, and not a day goes by that it's not on my mind. And I wanted to share the really weird story about how I got to this point. Now, what I mean by the title was not I only started enjoying Final Fantasy XIV because I passed the 300-hour mark, nor is it saying that Final Fantasy XIV only gets good after 300 hours. It's more like it gets good if you actually be really patient and read the dialogue, or once you buy a story skip and just watch the cutscenes. Okay, that's kind of not true either. What I mean by it is that
It takes
for
a little
over
bit to
300
warm up.
hours
absolutely.
over the course
It
of
took
like
us a little while to warm
5
up to it,
years.
too. And now
I've
we're
been
madly
playing
in
Final
love.
Fantasy XIV wrong.
Playing it wrong.
Sort of. You can't actually play a game wrong. It's complicated. I'm about to go on a really long story about what those first 300 hours entailed for who knows how many minutes, so if you're someone who's been struggling to like the game like I was and want to know how I finally did it, you can just skip to this part of the video. Long story short, I bought a story skip and just watched cutscenes, and also actually tried reading the text for once, no matter how agonizing some parts of it are. Oh, and also looked up where to unlock the fun content and give myself personal goals. There's also going to be a significant amount of the video criticizing portions of Final Fantasy XIV. That said, this is not a critique or a review of Final Fantasy XIV, but more so the criticism and dislikes are meant to express how I feel and give context to the story rather than anything constructive that I think would objectively improve the game. To be clear, anytime I complain about parts of this game, it's merely to let you know how I felt at the time. Whenever I do make such complaints about the game, I will put a green chicken in the corner of the screen as a reminder of this point. Otherwise, the rest of the video is going to be a lot of rambling. But hey, maybe you like rambling. I don't know.
I'm going to be looking closely for the
look for that green chicken.
Anyway, let us start.
It's fine to critique. It's fine to be open and honest about your opinions.
The initial struggle.
Truly, yes.
It's something like 2015 or 2016, I can't quite pin down the exact time, and I had just gotten my own laptop for college because you kind of need one no matter what major you're in. So being in graphic design, I get a pretty powerful one, conveniently powerful enough to run games on.
Perfect.
I also had a fair bit of spare time on my hands one semester and was browsing through what free games were being played at the time since I had a budget of
$0.
Yeah.
Anyway, I
Been
see
there,
a
done that.
new MMO called Final Fantasy XIV Online: A Realm Reborn: Heavensward with a really cool trailer and nice graphics and tall muscular
Heavensward
women.
was
and I
good.
Thought, I don't know. I don't really have the money. And then I saw that there's a 14-day free trial, and I thought, I still don't know. And then I saw that you can be a cat boy, and I was like, yeah, sold.
Cat
and so I
boy.
downloaded the game. After logging into the weirdly 2000s looking launcher. What? I was taken
that
in
launcher
by
is
the
something
grand
special.
title screen, the atmospheric
Oh,
character creation menu,
Or like
the
registering for the
cool,
game,
immersive
rather.
opening
Yeah,
cutscene with so many plot hooks
needlessly
and mysteries waiting
complex.
to be
It
unraveled
is.
by the story, and it plays like World of Warcraft but slower.
Correct assessment.
Yes.
So, before this game, I was a big MMO junkie. I played WoW when I was a kid. It was around when the Iceman DLC had just come out, which many would consider peak WoW. But I don't think I really played long enough or was conscious enough, being the dumb little kid that I was, to really say I ever truly experienced WoW, at least not in WoW itself. I had played loads of other free-to-play MMOs that were pretty close to being WoW clones, except probably a lot worse. I played Fiesta Online, Fly for Fun, Scions of Fate, and a whole lot of Nexon
All them.
games, and
All
a bunch
them.
of others.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
also very sick of tab
We've
targeting
done them
by
all
this
too,
point in
boys.
time and felt spoiled by playing things
Context,
like Terra
not-
Online
that's the
and
chicken.
Dark Souls, so I quit the game.
It starts slow,
Until a
man.
few years
Yeah,
later,
it
suddenly
really
the free
does
trial
start
period was
slow.
extended to like the first 20 or 30
absolutely love
levels for
Final
an
Fantasy
unlimited amount of
14, but
time
yeah, it's a
instead
little
of the
slow
previous
starting.
14-day limit. And after making a new account because I forgot the password for the old one, I downloaded the game again and it was fun. In fact, this is the same character that I play today. Not because of the
Nice.
story, God no. After reading like 2 paragraphs to get through one fetch quest, it lost my interest. No, I was in it for the progression because at around this
I like the
time I had
progression,
just
too.
discovered
Me too.
crafting. And boy, that was a rabbit hole and a half, sucking all my free time.
Speaking of which, we gotta
good,
get back
and
to do more
probably
crafting.
giving me
Yeah,
a
we
few
really
past due
do.
projects that
Yeah, we
semester
went
in
on
the
like a little
process. Now, for those who
crafting
don't
binge
know,
for a little
trial
while,
accounts
then got
can't use the
distracted and
market
never
board,
went back.
which allows players to buy and sell other players' items, including crafting materials. So
Nice.
I pretty much had to gather and craft each and everything for everything myself if I wanted to make some of the higher level recipes. And it was around this point that I decided, you know what, I like this game. I'll buy it. And so it became the one game I bought that year. It was great. I bought and sold items on the market board, got my own chocobo, just unlocked glamour, and dressing up my cat boy in some badass
Yeah.
armor.
Oh,
Hell,
Things were
yeah.
going great.
Let's go.
Sweet.
Until I had to keep playing more of the main story quest.
Oh.
The thing about Final Fantasy XIV is that it doesn't overwhelm you with information and features and abilities like a few other games I know. It's great at slowly dishing out and introducing you to features. This is a double-edged
Slow
sword,
build.
however,
Yes.
because in this case, it means you have to unlock everything. Raids,
I like that, though. It's like a
bosses, game
form of
too,
progression
yeah.
in
Sometimes
itself.
entire
It
areas
is.
have
I
to be
like it
unlocked
too.
gradually. Some of them are locked behind blue quests that try to give context and maybe their own
I
little
li-
story in the
I like
process. of
feeling like I
unlocking them,
accomplished
but
something when I
Yeah.
log
most
out,
of it
and like
is
unlocking
unlocked
something's
behind
an
the
accomplishment.
main
so-
story
Correct.
quest, or MSQ for short. And knowing I had to do them to get to the content I wanted made me really not like them.
No, no.
So I
The
got
MSQ is
incredibly
good. It
bored
just
and
takes a while.
re-downloaded a game with
A little
good
bit to
story
build up.
instead.
Yeah.
Fallout 4. Around this time, I think I clocked in about 60 to 80 hours of game time total, what many would call a first impression, which is not totally off since I think I was only about halfway through the vanilla game story at this point, something like the level 20 or 30
Yeah, it's
quests.
rough up
But
until
even
about
then, I
that,
think
I'd
professional
say.
B-person Barry Kramer said it right in his Death Stranding video.
There's a saying that often comes up when recommending certain games, and that's, it gets good after a couple, or 10, or 20
Or 100
When someone
hours.
says that to me, I go, no thanks, I'd rather play a game that, oh, I don't know, gets good after 0
True.
hours.
I think we can all agree that it's totally
It's the
reasonable
green
to
chicken.
not have
Oh.
to spend an entire immigration process worth of a slog before you can start having
True.
fun, right?
True.
I'm sorry, sir, but you misspelled the name of the Sultana. I'm afraid I'm going to have to reject your application to start playing the good part. What? How was I supposed to know I had to pay attention to the story of an MMO? We made an impressive opening cutscene for you with special animations and story hooks. And yet you still can't recall the name of your faithful companions. Of course I can. Quiz me. Flynn Rider. Gwen Stacy. That's a pimp. Girl who says bruh. Gay French best friend of girl who says bruh. Oh,
Dude, my
you
man is
can't
drawing
trick me.
all
That's
this
not
stuff.
a
It's
real
amazing.
character.
That's
At the time,
insane.
I was
Yeah,
someone
he's
who
quite the artist.
hated reading anything that wasn't a Halo lore wiki page. On top of the fact that whenever I did read, it was, to me, what sounded like meaningless nonsense.
There's a lot of
Yep. Who is this guy?
clicking
Why should I
through
care that
stuff
he
in the
wants a
beginning.
pizza? I'll deliver it because I
Yeah.
have to progress the
Yeah.
story, but this is dumb
the
and I
beginning
hate it. I know
storylines
now
just
that
didn't-
most
it
of
was
14's story is
introducing a
slow
lot of
burn,
characters
and
and
that
not-
pizza was
didn't
a
feel
little bit of a
connected at
slog
all.
years
It was
later,
like-
but
Took a
try
while.
convincing
Yeah.
younger me that doing 8 fetch quests in a row is
Oh,
gonna be
the
totally
fetch
worth it. I
quests.
promise
Yeah.
for realsies. So yeah, I was not grabbed by the story, and the fact that I couldn't just ignore it because it unlocks all of the endgame bits made each quest feel like another obstacle.
I got lucky
keeping me
because
from
J-Rox
reaching the
dragged
real
me through the
game,
story and voiced
especially
over
when
all the
so
non-voiced
many
over
of the
parts
quests
for me.
involve standing around.
Otherwise, I might not have made it.
You're just standing there and talking.
I was like, you will make it through.
That's all they're doing.
Exactly.
That's all
It's
they
like, you
ever
will
do.
listen to the
Just
story
stand
that I
there and
read to
talk.
you.
But I'll get to that later.
Just sit back and relax. I'll do
And it
all
was
the hard
as I
work.
started playing through the story.
I may have
and
also
getting
tab
through all
targeted
the
out
quests
and killed
that I
things
started to
in Vampire
realize,
Survivors
wow,
and Bro
I
Tato
am
while he was
not
telling me the
having
story.
fun. And it's at this point that I'm sure plenty of
time to
people will
time.
say, yeah,
'Cause I like
ARR
murder.
is a slog, but Heaven's Word is when it really picks up. But no, this is how I felt after I beat Heaven's Word. Even the Dragon Song. Even the Dragon Song.
It
War,
had me
which
by
many would
Heaven's
say
Word.
Was peak
Yeah.
main story
I was
quest
hooked by
content
then.
before Shadowbringers came out. And no, Shadowbringers being the best expansion now does not change the fact that everybody said Heaven's Word is still amazing and should be what hooks you. And when the game starts to get really good. Because I know for certain most players would still agree with that opinion. I mean, heck, it's in all of the free trial memes right now. You call it the award-winning expansion. I beat Heaven's Word, the supposed peak of the game, at the time, and I was not having fun.
Oh, no.
So I quit playing. Again.
Understandable.
Some of you who have been with the channel from the beginning may remember that I did stream 14 a bit around this time. And you may remember me giving my gripes and struggling to get through the game.
Poor guy. Yeah.
So it's like, I hate to be negative. I'm being negative a lot. But like, I mean, when you look at this quest, when you look at a quest like this, that it's literally talk to someone else, walk on out to this map, talk to another person, and then come back here and talk to the person again, and then that's the quest. I know, I believe you. I believe you that it gets better. But it's hard to get invested when so many of the quests are like this.
Personal side note that doesn't really matter to the overall story, but at the time, I tried to play up my reactions and excitement to supposed important and impactful moments happening in the game. Partly because I was trying to be entertaining, but also because they had been hyped up. But to be perfectly honest, I didn't really feel the same excitement as everybody else. But I didn't really want to disappoint or invalidate anyone because they were all excited about this game, and I felt like such an outlier. Like, you know when you want to show your friend a really cool or funny video and it gets to the really good part and you're waiting to see their reaction? I felt like I was that friend the video was being shared with. Others were waiting on how I'd feel and hyping up the moment. Here it comes, and so I guess I felt like I had to play it up. Dude, wasn't that cool? Did you see that? Oh my god, I cried at that part. Yeah, dude, that part was really awesome. Yeah. Needless to say, I was frustrated that I was missing out. I really, really wanted to like this game. So why is it so hard to?
Interesting that he didn't like it in Heaven's Word. I did.
Yeah, that is really
Part two,
interesting. I was
the
totally in
quests.
love by Heaven's Word, yeah.
Now, was it my own fault for skipping the cutscenes and dialogue and not paying attention to the context of what I was doing?
Doubtless.
Partly, yes, but I think it's unfair to say the game doesn't have some responsibility in keeping the player's attention so that they can feel compelled to continue to pay attention. That,
Not every
and
game is for
also I
everybody.
think that unless the
Definitely,
game's
yeah.
stories are so
But it's
deeply
good, there's so much
tied to its
variety.
mechanics that you cannot have one without the other, that the gameplay part of the game should be able to stand and be engaging on its own. Whether or not you believe 14 does this, I think is going to be subjective. In my opinion,
That's
it's
the
not a
green
story
chicken
that
again.
needed to be told with an MMO, and I think it could possibly have benefited from being a different type of game entirely.
Yeah.
And I do also believe that the game can stand on its own without the story, and that you should be allowed to enjoy it without the story. Understandably, there's a fair bit of people who would have a word
But I
with
think
that
that's what
first
makes it
part.
different from other
Asking people
MMOs.
online, I've been
Yeah.
told some more interesting
it
perspectives
makes
looking
it
at 14 and how it achieves its story in ways I
No
hadn't
other
thought of
MMO
before.
did that.
Namely,
That much
14's
story.
MMO nature
It's true.
means it can achieve such a story that is built over a long period of time with an active community, and can achieve an enhanced level of personal investment and in-game nods back to said
Is that
community.
original? Looks-
That would
what is it?
not
Oh, is
be
that
the
11?
same with a single-player game. The relaunch of the game being tied to an in-universe apocalyptic event being
badass.
one of the
Oh
most
my
common
God.
Yeah, that
examples.
was
But
crazy.
that's not super relevant to the point I'm trying to make anyway. For the longest time, I did not feel compelled to read all of the dialogue because a big chunk of the game showed
That's like
me
you.
it was
Chicken.
not
Divinity.
worth reading.
Yeah, it is me. I have to be honest, I'm madly in love with the game, but I may not have made it even the most recent time if it weren't for the fact that you were reading a lot of the story for me for the
Granted,
sake of the
writing
stream.
is an art and not a science. So as much as I say it should have had a better story, it's not like the writers just forgot to push the make good story button. So I acknowledge that for plenty of people, they probably did not have the same issue I did. For plenty of people, the story was probably engaging and great all the way through. I do, however, think the questing themselves could have been much more engaging, or just cut down. And that was my main problem with getting into the game's main
I think
story.
it's interesting
The
because they did go back
quests
and
were
cut it
not
down some
Yeah.
due to feedback.
Yeah.
And then I think too it's an older
Travel from
game,
place
and
to
traditionally
place,
the way
talking to
quests
8
were done
NPCs,
when
only
the
to
game
go
was
all the way back
created
to the
is different
original
from
that's
what
now
it's
on the other
evolved
side
to
of the
today.
continent. Hope you like running around a lot or
So-
having lots of loading screens. Go to a location, click a thing, wait for the progress bar to finish, and repeat 5 or 6 times. Do about 20 of the typical collect 5 bare asses quests that every MMO has, then talk to about 7 more NPCs. Time to disband your party.
I don't
every
like
time the
that.
story
That's-
starts
I
to
don't
like
turn
the
into
solo
a
Yeah,
single-player game,
I've
and any
mentioned
friends you're
on
playing
stream
with that
about
have either
87
done it
times
already
that
or
that's my
finished
least
first.
I
favorite
wish
have
they
to wait
could
around
I
for
hate
scale
you
it
catch
to
up
go
or
in
go
with
off and play by
people,
themselves for a
friends,
while.
Yeah,
things.
I
These
do
quests
too.
are
I
not
hate
fun to do,
solo
at least
duties.
not by
Like,
themselves.
I do fine in
anyway.
them, but they're
Take
just
away
not
the game's
fun for
story,
me.
and the
Like, I
actual
like doing
things you're
group
doing
content.
are tedious, repetitive, monotonous, boring. And as someone who was initially turned off by the long-winded dialogue, of course I'd eventually start to not pay attention and instead focus on the gameplay, which are quests, which I found boring. And this is still the case even in Shadowbringers. I'm gonna give an example while abridging some of the names in context so I don't spoil anything. One instance, there's a series of quests involving getting directions from some crocodiles, because the crocodiles are the only ones who hold the key to the swamp
Okay.
monster boss
Oh,
and how
nice.
to reach it. And they agree to help the party, but only if you agree to do their laundry.
What?
Really?
Say what?
I'm on an adventure
Well, we did
to
one
save
time
the
have to take
world, and you're
people's
having me
sandwiches,
spend a
so-
significant
Yeah,
amount of time
I think
on
more
the
than once.
main story
Yeah, doing
quests,
laundry is really not that
cleaning
surprising.
Lewis's underwear. And then they have the characters go, "Oh man, this seems like
If I
a lot
had
of
to
busy
do
work. What a
laundry,
chore!"
doing it
Like,
for a
yeah,
crocodile is
no
pretty
kidding.
cool, I think.
Why do I have to do it? Like, look, here's a
Better than
random
doing laundry
quest
at
I
home.
did, and at this point, I was thoroughly hooked in the game. I was sold. I was gonna go through Shadowbringers, and I was thoroughly enjoying myself. But just look at this quest.
Some of this doesn't make sense where it's you go from killing primals to random tasks helping villagers
Oh, yeah?
gather grain or something.
Yeah, for sure.
But it is kind of like how original Final Fantasy games are. I mean, they're very tech-savvy,
Yeah,
very
it's in line with it.
doing.
With
It's a
its
Final Fantasy
genre.
game, you know.
Was that fun?
For sure.
It makes you very
do
much feel that way.
about like
Yeah.
10 times or so in that area alone. The limitations of the game's MMO systems makes an otherwise wonderful story extremely tedious to actually play through. Because it is a great story, and these are great characters, and this is a wonderful world with interesting people and cultures and history. But man, does the game get in its own way sometimes. And I think when people say the game gets better at Heavensward or Shadowbringers,
I think,
I don't
too,
think
like,
they mean
the way
the
we approach
quests
it is
get
helpful.
better. Because they don't really
if we start
change
getting
that
like
much.
bored
Hence
with the
why I
fetchy
still
quests,
wasn't enjoying
there's
Heavensward.
so many other
You're
things you
still
can do.
walking
Like you
8
can go do
miles
an
to talk
event,
to an
you
NPC.
can go run
You're
dungeons,
still
you can like
clicking on a location
pick 1,000
and waiting
different
5
things to
seconds
spend
before
your time
walking
on
to another
until you're
location
feeling
to
like you're
repeat it 4 or 5 times.
energized.
You're still having to disband your party to go do single player stuff while your friends have to wait around for each other depending on who finishes the solo instance first. The story and characters and world are great in spite of these things. Not that they were removed and now you can enjoy the story easier. And no, I don't think I don't understand why the game does these things, because I do. And I'm gonna prove it by explaining how those things don't bother me anymore. The first main reason is because it's an MMO. The game developers have to work with very limited systems and have to make sure you can't just plow right through to the end game in a couple of hours. You can't really afford to implement something like a complex minigame or in-depth combat system or things that more traditional games can afford, because they're developing a massive multiplayer online game. Emphasis on massive.
It's
they
huge.
just don't have the resources. The second reason is that they're trying to tell a story with pacing and rising and falling action and quiet moments and character building and depth and nuance and things that take time to do. Part of the reason why so many praise 14's story and writing is because everything takes its time. Sometimes for worse, but most of the time for better. It's an actual story where you're not constantly hitting things for hours on end, because that wouldn't make sense in a typical story. Think of the average amount of action in a TV show. It's kind of few and far
Castlevania,
between.
so good.
Most shows have a lot of talking,
Witcher.
downtime, that sort of stuff. 14 is kind of similar in that way. The third is the all too overused pretentious video game buzzword, immersion. The reason the crocodiles have us do all those chores is to make you feel as annoyed as the characters are. The reason you have to look around in 5 different spots and find nothing is because the thing you're looking for is incredibly rare, and you wouldn't be able to find it just by looking around randomly. The reason the characters talk the way they do with such deliberate vocabulary is to establish a tone and culture and feel for this world and these people. That they talk that way to set it apart from our everyday world. The reason you have to travel such long distances is to show and feel the vastness of the world. The buildings, the cities, kingdoms are huge masses that are far apart in a big universe. In essence, because you are role
I actually feel like you didn't travel on Heaven's Word maps enough, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty.
This is the part of enjoying the game that is not going to click with everyone, because it is a very acquired thing to get immersed in a game. Some people require some level of presentation
What is
in order
that?
to really get
Immersion.
into the world. Real life would be an incredibly annoying and boring game. You have to consume very specific items that are only consumable in a limited amount of time every few hours, or else you suffer a debuff. You have to stop playing the game for several hours or suffer another debuff. You gotta stop what you're doing every few hours to get rid of your consumables or suffer a debuff. There's no fast travel, no heads up display, no pause menu, no skip dialogue button, and you gotta fold each individual piece of laundry and watch the full animation each and every single time it happens.
Red Dead Redemption 2.
Now, obviously, Final Fantasy XIV doesn't do the roleplay and simulation to this extent, but that's essentially the thought behind all these tedious and sometimes boring, nonsensical missions. When you get into character, really putting yourself in the shoes of your warrior of light, then the long search you're doing just feels like another day for you, rather than an annoying roadblock stopping you from unlocking the next raid content. You are in the world. You're participating in the story.
They're
in all
very
of its
much like
upsides and downsides.
typical JRPG.
All that said, whether it does this
Text
well or
dialogue
not
around the
is
town,
going to
I
be,
feel like.
again, subjective and differ from person to person. At the time, this in my opinion still did not make the questing any less tedious, monotonous, or boring, and that if you aren't willing to trudge through them for the story, then the story itself might not convince you.
It's fair.
Or will it? Part 3. Setting the right mindset. I've been fairly negative for a majority of this video so far, so let's
That's good, though,
turn it
to, like,
around a
share
bit.
your
Chekhov's
honest
gun
It
is a
is.
concept that
opinions,
describes
you know?
how
Like,
every
to-
element of a
yeah,
story
to
should
say how you
contribute
really
to the
feel.
whole. The basic gist of the writing philosophy is this. If in the first chapter it's written that there is a loaded gun hanging on the wall, at some point in the story, that gun absolutely must go off. Otherwise, don't put the gun there. Now, there are variations of the gun going off that doesn't always have to follow the audience's expectations, but if it's brought up in the story, it has to have significance in some way. It's not a universal rule, but it's definitely a piece of writing advice that is tried and true, and many writers consider it a good thing to keep in mind. A writing tool, if you will, just like the hero's journey, the rule of threes, and basically anything you can hear Red talking about on overly sarcastic productions. Final Fantasy XIV uses this in its writing all the time, almost to a formula, and that's not a bad thing. I'd say in many ways it does
think
it
the story writing's
competently
amazing,
at
honestly.
worst
Yeah, it is.
and masterfully
is.
at best. And that's the philosophy behind a lot of its writing, and I think what turned me off of the MSQ for such a big portion of my 300 hours. Almost everything is set up for payoff later. And now that
True.
I'm hooked on the game, can I say with confidence that all that setup was worth it? Okay, yes, it is pretty awesome to see the crocodiles show up in their freshly cleaned and bedazzled underwear that I myself helped them with, but did I really need to walk 40 miles back and forth between the washing machines to do 20 wash cycles? Maybe it was necessary to get that payoff, but then there are other quests that achieve the same effect without such annoying tasks. I don't know. Maybe my tolerance and patience is just a lot lower than a lot of people when it comes to putting up with all that setup. Maybe it was my experience with old school MMOs, where if 3 quests in the story don't amount to anything, it's a clear sign that the rest of the story's not going to be worth paying attention to. I don't think it's entirely my or the game's fault, really. And again, it's subjective, and the answer to that question will differ from person to person and vary from quest to quest. Some people are going to think sniffing the chocobo was necessary for the story. Some people will not. But when I started to realize that the game does do this, I started to adjust my patience and expectations a bit, and that is really what it took. Yes, the quests are tedious. Yes, you probably talk to about 10 more NPCs than you should have to. Yes, I do think in many places in ARR they could cut down even more quests
probably.
after they already did so recently. And yes, I'll say it, I don't think the chocobo sniffing quest was all that necessary to tell the story they wanted to tell.
So funny.
Some people would disagree, which is fine. This is going to be an extremely subjective thing. Plenty of people will like the story just the way it is and wouldn't want it changed even a little, and that's fine too. I'm just saying that with how the story went about making you do some of these menial tasks, that it actively turned me away from the MSQ, and as a result, the entire game as a whole, since so much of it hinged on doing the MSQ. The more insightful of you may have come to the conclusion that a lot of my dislikes for the MSQ are sounding like complaining that my strawberry ice cream is not a lemon lime popsicle instead, and yeah, it kind of is. But some people like strawberry ice cream, and I don't think either side is wrong. People can like or dislike whatever they want. But when I finally started to realize and accept that it was strawberry ice cream, and I wasn't going to get a lemon lime popsicle,
you're wrong.
I started to eat it like one.
How dare you offer them chocolate ice cream?
That it's not being the thing that I want it to be. The moment this came about was around August of 2020. Patch 5.3 had just come out and was wrapping up the epilogue story of Shadowbringers.
We didn't get there yet.
I was watching a few friends and other streamers playing the MSQ. And since I didn't have any agency in actually playing, not being able to just mash the skip button, I was forced to pay attention to what was going on. I mean, not actually forced to. I could close the stream if I ever wanted to, but you get what I'm saying. I had to sit there and watch and read, and I was engrossed.
Oh, these are some great highlights that he found. Oh!
Even without all the context leading to that point in the story, there seemed to be some big things happening, and I wanted to know what was going on. And so, a bit after that stream, I logged into my account, which I had previously story-skipped to Shadowbringers in a last-ditch effort to find the diamond in the rough of this game, and I started watching through all the cutscenes, slowly getting more and more engaged by and invested in the story. Then, when I got all caught up with Shadowbringers, I threw out my gripes about what the game wasn't, and instead started playing the game for what it is.
Yeah, that's what you have to do.
And what it is, no joke,
the transition
is some of the best storytelling I have had the pleasure to participate in. I'm not going into any spoiler territory, so don't worry, but the ways this game ties plot points and characters together, the way it builds its world's rules and trusts your ability to know those rules and rewards you for doing so, the way it lets characters have emotional moments all to themselves just so you can see how they feel, the way it builds up to story climaxes that just make you want to jump up and cheer how freaking cool it gets. I hadn't realized that for the longest time I was skipping so much of the journey, the main story quest, so I could get to the real content, when in reality the journey is the content.
It is the
content. Story and build up and time.
It's different. It's a different type of MMO.
Real content.
For sure.
That, and it's always nice to have a story that takes the time it needs. But all this has been me talking about the main story quest, right? Aren't there other parts of the game that need to be good too? Can't you just not bother with the MSQ and just enjoy the gameplay part? And yeah, maybe other people in my shoes would have been able to enjoy the game even with having to grind through all the dialogue, or just flat out buying a story skip. But at least for me, being invested in that main story made pretty much everything better,
Yeah,
especially since so
exactly.
many other facets of the
Makes
game
things
revolve
It gives
meaningful.
around it.
context
But
to
hey,
the things
shouldn't
that
the
you're
gameplay
doing,
also
Yeah.
be able
so
to
it
stand on
feels
its
like
own?
it's value
And yeah, I
added.
agree. I think if you
instead of a
can't
waste
enjoy
of
a game's
time,
story, you
the
should still
tasks
be able
and
to enjoy its gameplay, which, as I said before, Final Fantasy XIV does a great job in this department as well. One thing I didn't mention is that while I was trying my best to get into the game and bashing my head against the wall that was the MSQ, I was enjoying other parts of the game that didn't involve that much MSQ. Things like hunting for cool gear, doing dungeons and boss fights
Dungeons
where your
are
class's role
amazing.
and
They
abilities
are, they're
actually
incredible.
start to play into account. Getting together with friends and attempting high difficulty fights that
yeah.
require teamwork, coordination, and many, many, many
So
attempts.
fun.
There is plenty to enjoy in the game if you are someone who likes customizing, grinding, raiding, dungeoning, optimizing crazy ability combos, being the center of attention, being really hot, being anime, being
Wearing
small,
nothing
collecting
around everywhere.
Amazing.
earning all those things through playing the game because that's the only way
I was
to
definitely
get them.
surprised by
Taking down
skimpy
the
outfits when I
biggest,
started
baddest,
playing.
angriest
Yeah.
boss
I
that
was
would
like,
make
oh, I
Sekiro's
see
bosses
schoolgirl
ask for
outfits.
Oh,
accessibility.
someone wearing nothing, wielding an axe in the dungeon.
Amazing.
Look at my health! And so many things that you can do independent of reading any of the MSQ. And it's all so good. Part 4, the correct way to start. But let's say you're still like me from a few years ago. You're in the mindset that you don't care how good the payoff is. Boring quests and gameplay and spam clicking through the dialogue to get to the good part is a huge turnoff. How can you even like the game? Well, honestly, maybe you won't. And that's okay.
Yeah.
There's a free trial up to level 60, so you're good to try it out with no cost to you other than a little bit of your time. But if you really want to know how to get past those things that hold you back from enjoying the game, here are a few ways I feel can help alleviate some of those gripes. Firstly, 3 different paths you can approach and start playing the game. Path 1, the purist. If you've got the patience, try your best to endure the base game of A Realm Reborn. It's actually got some parts that are better than I remember after doing some
It gets
research
good.
for this.
It
Yeah,
gets
it
good.
And
does.
they've definitely cut
Middle
out a
or
lot
3/4 of the way in.
really
Agreed,
pointless
yeah.
quests.
By the end
it may be a
of
real
ARR, I
trudge,
was
but the people
definitely
who are able to
enthralled.
handle that part are the ones I think can appreciate all the payoff the most. And speaking as someone who does not look forward to when I'm eventually going to go through ARR again in the New Game Plus, I do still envy those who are able to experience it properly.
Hey, JoCat from the future. I actually went ahead and did play through New Game Plus already because this video was taking too long to make. And I even streamed my experience, which was useful for getting footage for this
Oh,
video.
wow.
It isn't much, but go and give them these Twilight pretzels, would you?
Papa Sean.
Comfort food always helps me when I'm
Twilight
feeling like
pretzels?
killing
Yeah,
myself.
yeah. I remember that quest, man, and I didn't even realize it was Papa Sean. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
you-
no,
I remember
no
it was
idea.
some
Those
little
streams can be
lala fell,
watched
but I
on
didn't
my
remember
VOD's channel.
Yep.
nothing
JoCat
about
streams,
him.
For anyone who is interested.
Or that if we'd
A
ever
word
see
of
him
warning,
again.
though, they are very long.
Best way I can recommend making it less tedious is doing it with friends. Everything's better with friends. And
That's how
hey,
we
it's
did
an
it.
MMO. It's kind of made for
Yeah.
that in mind. Path 2, the moderate. If you have some cash to spare
Buy a
and just
story
want
skip.
to immediately get to the good part, buy a story skip for A Realm Reborn so you
guess.
can start Heavensward and watch the story cutscenes from the inn. There's a book called The Unending Journey. It should give
Oh,
you
and
the
see the
basic bullet points
cutscenes.
and most of
Yeah.
what you need to know going into it. Maybe a few story recap videos could be good to catch you up on the finer details too. People aren't kidding when they say Heavensward
I
is
say
when the
suffer
story
through
gets
the
good.
beginning
Like I said,
with
it's
the
still got
promise
tedious
of a
quests,
good
all the
end.
expansions do,
Through.
really,
Yeah.
but at least this
It's
one
all
has great
so
moments
much
and good
important
voice acting.
information
That's
that
my
you don't
opinion.
realize is important.
Well, it also introduces you to the MMO elements
It
too.
does, yes.
Also dragons.
I guess you
and
could do it,
handsome
but
elfmen. Path 3, the impatient. If you really just want to get to the end game or just want to experience the best expansion according to nearly the entire player base, you can buy a story skip to get to Shadowbringers immediately. I
So
can
we're not
attest
even-
that
we're in
it
Stormblood
is,
and-
in my opinion, the best expansion
You're
in
missing out on
story,
so much
though
good
it
stuff if
may
you do
not
that, I
have
feel
as
like.
big of an
are.
impact or payoff if you do this.
Hey, JoCat from the future again. At the time of recording this, I have just recently completed Endwalker, and so this statement is no longer accurate. At least the part about Shadowbringers being the best expansion, in my opinion. That thing about the story not having as big of an impact as a result of skipping, that still holds true, especially once you reach 6.0. Endwalker is
is amazing and, in my opinion, even surpasses
Really? Ooh, I'm
Shadowbringers.
excited.
However,
I'm
it does
excited. We got
require
good
you
stuff
to have
coming,
played
guys.
or at least experienced in some way all the previous expansion stories to understand what's going on, including
Nice.
A Realm Reborn. Hell, especially A Realm Reborn. After we get back to the video, past JoCat is going to mention that Shadowbringers is a fairly contained story, and although that is still partly true, that's only until you complete it and begin to play the post-game quests leading up to Endwalker, in which case the game is expecting you to have played or understood all of the stories from the previous expansions. You're basically in the final chapter of a story, after all. I say this as someone who did this as a last-ditch effort, and I honestly do regret it, even if it is what finally allowed me to start enjoying the game. There are going to be a few things that will also go over your head
Tombstones.
unless you watch the cutscenes to catch up on what's going on. But aside from that, it's a fairly contained story. Until you reach Endwalker! Larry Zauer called it an isekai, and that's less of an exaggeration than it sounds. This is also the path you should take if you have cash and really just don't
we got so
care
much good
about the
stuff, I can't
story
wait.
at all, and just want to
Yeah,
get
so
all the fights
excited.
unlocked. Unfortunately, you will still need to unlock a lot of other things by yourself,
Yeah, there's a lot
like
of
the raids and some of the
stuff to
high-end
do.
trials, as there is no just unlock everything for me button.
Yeah.
But
That's
this
what I was
is
saying.
the
That's why I
closest
think
thing
you just-
can get. I highly,
think you should just sold
highly,
it through. It's my
highly
opinion.
I agree.
recommend
My opinion.
against going with this path, unless, like me, you've tried everything. This should be considered a last resort. And here are a few things to keep in mind and try to apply to your playthrough regardless of which path you choose to go with. 1. Treat this game like a more old-school
exactly.
RPG.
And that's what it plays
like
like.
back in the day
Yeah.
when you had to read everything in text boxes
Yeah,
and stuff.
exactly.
Either that or a visual novel, because there's going to be a lot of reading. The MSQ is definitely more of a single-player game, so be prepared to be on your own a lot of the time. Immediately contradicting this, 2. Bring friends. This is a pretty obvious one, but yeah, friends
Immediately
make
Always
contradicting.
better.
including
Friends make
Always
things
it also
better
means you get to
always.
run dungeons
Yes,
and
for
raids
sure.
and bosses with them. It's pretty great when you have a full stack. And trust me, if your friends have already played through the MSQ, they'll be more than happy to go through it again with you. Veterans love seeing new players
They do,
experience the
they
MSQ.
do,
Yeah.
especially in this
3.
community.
After you beat A Realm Reborn, do
Hildebrands
the
are
Hildebrand quest.
fantastic.
Oh yeah,
man.
they're
First one
amazing
is called The
quests.
I wish they
Rise
were
of
Love that
voiced
quest
over.
line.
And
I
you
wish
can
they
get
were
it
voiced
from this
over.
guy
Make
in
them
a
so
little
Yeah,
bit. If
it
A
would
Realm
make it
Reborn
much
didn't
better.
sell you on the game's
Well, I
writing,
do my
and
best.
honestly,
I do
for
my
a lot
best,
of you,
guys.
You do
probably won't.
amazing
This
voiceovers
definitely
for
will.
them.
Do not look up anything about it. Just know that it is some of the most amazing and wonderful writing in video games that I have had the pleasure of experiencing.
hilarious.
It might even tie with the MSQ as one of my favorite stories in the game. 4. Once you start Heavensward and reach Ishgard,
Boom!
do the Dark Knight
That's what we're
job
doing
quest.
now.
You can grab the
I
first
switched
one
over
from
to
this
Dark
guy,
Knight.
and it's
Oh,
some
yeah.
great character
Oh,
writing for
man.
your own character.
Holy
Amazing,
moly.
yes.
Honestly,
Such a good quest
super
line.
good. And you know when people say parts of a game are way better when you experience it yourself? Well, this one really is one of
So
those experiences.
good.
Some will say it makes all the rough quests worth it. I personally don't think so, but it does certainly acknowledge them in a way that I think is really, really creative and neat. And if you need any more selling, the writer for this questline went on to write for the MSQ for Shadowbringers and Endwalker.
Someone told me that.
So,
Yeah, someone told me
Yeah.
Even
that.
Square Enix realized that it's got
They
some
were so
chops.
Like,
good.
oh,
5.
she did good.
Don't binge the
Have her do the
MSQ
main
unless you
quest.
are really into it. This game's pacing is slow, really
Mm-hmm.
slow, and it can feel like trudging through tar if you try to get through it all
Yeah,
at once.
not
for
a
some
race to
people.
the end.
Unless you're completely
It's
hooked
an
by the
enjoy the
story,
journey
it's
sort of
totally fine to
situation.
go do some other things like job quests or unlocking raids and stuff, or even just taking a break from the game entirely. Take your time. Don't be like me. Don't try to get through the MSQ as fast as possible. You will hate it. 6. Most of all, pay attention. I made the mistake of glossing over things or skipping a few dialogue boxes that I felt wouldn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but honestly, most, if not everything is
matters.
kind
It seems
of
not
useful
important in the beginning. That's the
It does,
problem.
After
And then you
yeah.
find out
build up for some kind of payoff later. Whether
Everyone
or
you're
not
talking
it pulls
to
it off
comes
may
back
be
around.
arguable
Every single
at times,
person,
but for the
yeah.
most part, the storytelling formula in this game rewards you for paying attention. So
Mm-hmm.
pay attention. So yeah, and that's how I figured out how to get past Final Fantasy XIV's biggest barrier to entry. At least for me. and start enjoying
Interesting
the game.
take.
And I enjoy it so
Yeah, it is a
much.
very interesting take.
So much more than I thought I would, especially with how frustrated I was with it before. In the past few months alone, I've joined a free company, made new friends, created a badass and pretty cute looking character
Nice.
that I'm proud of, organized a raiding group, taken down some of the toughest fights in the game.
Sweet.
No, we got it. We got this.
Boss, and
We got it. Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, hey.
Yes!
nothing bad ain't ever happened.
I won the lottery, I bought a house, I got married, I started streaming my reactions to patch announcements and updates. Melvin, yeah! Oh my god, they did it! I'm genuinely starting to get excited about things in this game. I'm browsing YouTube, constantly looking for every bit of 14 content I can inject into my eyeballs. I spent way too much
We've
money
been trying
on
to be careful for
Fantasia,
spoilers,
and I
so we've
even
been
made
just
a guide
basically
series
doing
dedicated to
True.
the
stuff that
game.
people recommend
I am
that are spoiler free.
obsessed
Like
with
this.
game.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
constantly trying to recruit more people to come play so that I can see them experience the wonders and joys it has to offer. And best of all, so that I can join in and be right alongside
Yes.
them
Yeah.
when they do.
Nice.
Yoshi P.
So beautiful.
So epic. They
It
make the game
is.
so epic.
They do.
That's the one thing you could say about the game so epic. Is this still going? Oh,
Well, I guess that's the end of this story then. Thanks for sitting through all of that. I like this game so much. And make no mistake, this is far from the last time I'm going to be talking about it. Which reminds me, given that I've been playing a cat boy for pretty much my whole 14 career, I think it's about time I start embracing the cat part of my name from now on. So,
Nice. Oh, and a bow. Perfect.
how purty.
yes, this is a real thing. This is happening
Yay.
now. I just like this. It makes me feel
Nice.
happy.
Good. You should feel happy.
Agent of Inquiry.
Nice.
They said
No fear, no fear.
they said make sure not to skip till the end. On their last
Okay.
on the comments of the last video, they said there's good stuff
Perfect.
in the credits after the credits. All right, so we'll
Yeah,
keep
we're
watching,
hanging
guys. We'll
tight,
keep watching.
guys.
We won't make a
See
mistake.
what happens
We won't make
next.
a mistake.
Joe, your
Yeah?
gear? Why do you have 38,000 health?
Oh,
no.
my gear broke. Okay. My gear broke. Do we wanna leave the instance?
Oh my, no,
Maybe-
no.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe that's why I couldn't grab aggro.
Sure, she doesn't sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
With all the horrible light that came out and when it corrupted them.
Oh my gosh.
Does he stream anymore?
Hilarious. Oh, he's doing the dance. Flexing.
Nice. That was
That was
really
amazing.
good. He's really talented.
He really is. That was so good.
Yeah. You know what I have to say is that he's right about, and everyone says it too, the ARR story is really slow, and I could definitely see it turning a lot of people away. But you know what else also, besides the AR story being slow, is that the MMO elements of the game are slow in the beginning too, because
Yes.
so the whole game starts off slow, not
It
just
does.
the story.
Yeah, all of it.
And I think that's what turns people off in the beginning. That was the main issue with me. I could play an MMO and not worry about the story. I mean, a lot of MMOs don't have fantastic
Me too.
story.
I'm great at doing that,
So
actually.
the part that turned me off was, the story seemed real, questy and tasky and running around and a lot of dialogue-y.
Yeah.
But the MMO elements were really sparse as well in the beginning. I didn't realize that
Yeah,
they were going to be
absolutely.
coming in as you went. So I think that's definitely a big factor too. The combat starts really slow with a big 2.5-second cooldown.
Yeah,
And you only get a few
even-
moves.
Even getting to the combat takes forever. Because do you remember we were like running around like Limsa
Yeah.
for like
Like, I just wanna
14
fight
levels
something.
or
Yeah.
something? Like literally, it was like forever to even just get out of the city.
Yeah,
It
and I
was
think we
like-
made the mistake of picking up every side quest, and then
Yeah,
I'm like,
you don't know not
can I go
to.
kill something already? Like,
Exactly. I'm like, oh my gosh, I literally just want to swing this weapon.
then I get out there, and then it's the same thing. And it's like swing. It's like
It's like, yeah, and then a 3-second
2,
cooldown.
2.5.
It's like, oh wow.
strike 2, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, and it wasn't
Yeah, for
until
sure.
about 3/4 of the way through ARR, something around level
Mm-hmm.
30, that not only did the story pick up, but then you start hitting dungeons, and after dungeon, you start getting more
Yeah.
moves. Everything starts picking up. You
It-
start
it
unlocking all
was.
the different MMO features. You start doing
And then
trials, and
we were lucky too because we had someone who gave us the advice of like only doing the main storyline and
so
the
we
blue
stopped
quests.
quickly. Yeah, and I'm glad we did.
so we stopped getting distracted by the side quests because
Normally, you see that exclamation mark. It's like
Yeah.
pick up the
like
you're gonna miss
oftentimes-
out if you
yeah,
don't, right?
oftentimes you pick up all of them, and then some games have like you can do multiple quests at the same time because they're
Yeah.
all grouped together, and so you had to not let yourself get distracted because the main story is pretty long and in depth by itself.
Yeah.
So then when you start adding side quests, and it's
They're not. Yeah,
makes it a
you're not
little
gonna be
bit-
missing out on anything per se. Like go ahead and skip
Exactly.
those. Come back through with another job.
Exactly. You use it for leveling other jobs is a great strategy.
Yeah, and that's exactly like to piggyback off of things he said. That would be my personal recommendation so far in our experience of the game is just grab the MSQs.
Yes, and the
push
blue
through
quests.
them. Push through a lot of the early dialogue, and when you
Yes.
get to level 20ish, and the MMO elements start getting better, the combat starts getting better. You start getting some awesome dungeons.
The
They start
dungeons
getting better.
flowing in. Yeah, absolutely.
Everything starts getting better.
Yeah.
Not just the story. Everything
True.
starts getting
All of
better
it, yeah.
and bigger and grander and more epic, and the game really starts coming together as
it
a
starts
whole.
spiraling into
Yeah.
amazing.
And that's what I feel like sucks you in is, for me anyway, not just the story, all of it.
all of it together.
gets
yeah.
better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely at the beginning, it definitely seems too like you're doing, even with the MSQ, it seems like it's hard to find the connection between the characters you're talking to in the quest to tie it together, but that comes later, so you just have to give it time and pay attention
Yeah.
to everyone you're meeting because they're all important down the
Yeah,
road.
yeah. There's a lot of dialogue-y stuff, but try to kind of
Yeah.
pay attention, remember faces and names because they're gonna come back.
Yes.
They seem like most NPCs. I think if you're playing other MMOs before you come to 14, you're used to just random NPC number 3 doesn't mean nothing. You'll never see him again, so you're not
Yeah,
really
just-
paying attention. That's not the case here. Like you want to remember who this is you're talking to. They're gonna come back around more than likely.
Yes,
and some of them may
absolutely.
end up being very important.
Yep.
And you'll remember back.
True.
But what an amazing content creator. Like, we're
he
content
is
creators ourselves.
awesome.
He is absolutely amazing just in the
So
couple videos we
talented.
saw so far. Ridiculously amazing and talented with all the animations and stuff.
Yeah.
Fantastic video. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, me too. It was an amazing video. Very much enjoyed it.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. If there's any other videos that you think that we should check out that are must-watches, we're still fairly newish to the game. We're in Stormblood ourselves. Go ahead and recommend them in the comments. As long as they're not spoiler, we'd be glad to check them out. We've been trying not to watch too much, almost anything, unless it's recommended to not be spoilerly, because we're trying to, protect ourselves from this amazing story without ruining it for us. So go ahead and leave a comment if you like, if there's something that we should check out.
Absolutely.
And with that, we will see you in the next one.
Bye.